I'm here in my morning scene. I've tweaked my camera AA settings, I've made changes to the light based on my critique, and I'm ready to export a series of 48 images to take into my compositing program and make a movie. The first thing I'm going to do is use the Render Settings window Common tab. In the Common tab, the first thing I'm going to change is the file name prefix. By default, it's not set using scene name. My scene name is kind of long, it's Still Life Project 01 Morning Light. Instead, I could just call this Mornlight, or Morn, or Morning, something nice and short that I'll be able to see when I get over to my next program. The next thing I'm going to change is my image format. Maya defaults to the EXR. EXRs are great. They are 32-bit files, which means that they contain a ton of data, but they're also very heavy. And for this class, I'd like to render something a little bit lighter, so I'm going to render the PNG. Next, under Frame/Animation Extension, it's set to Name Single Frame. I am going to set that to name.number.extension. Any one of these here with the number sign in it will render out a sequence of frames, but the only ones that you really want to use are name.number.extension or name_number.extension. This one doesn't put any spacing between the between the name and the number, which means that if you've got a number in your scene name that's just going to be tacked on to the frame number, that's no good. This one doesn't use a file extension at all, and this one puts the extension first and the number second, which causes most computers to wonder why you've bothered creating a .001 file and a .002 file. It's a complete waste of your time. I'm going to be using name.number.extension, that's my preference. The frame padding I'm using is set to 4. If I look up at the top of the Common tab, I can see that my render is going along this path, that's my set folder, into Images, and then I'll be rendering the name of my render pass, and you'll remember I've got a direct, an indirect, and a beauty. Then it's going to create morn_light 0001 to morn_light 0048. The number of zeros is indicated by the frame padding. It's set to 4, which is fairly standard, and I can leave it there. Because I'm only doing 48 frames, I could also set this down to 2, and I would still get my forced alphabetical order. You don't have to mess with that, but you should know what it does. Under frame range, I can set this from 1 to 48. That's what I want to do. And then under renderable cameras, I will set this to camera 1. Under image size, I am going to stick with HD 540 for now. Generally, HD 540 is considered to be a preview size. And what you would want to do is you would want to come in and turn this up a little to HD 720 or HD 1080 to render out a full HD image. However, since we are all rendering on our computers at home, HD 540 is going to work fine for all of us right now. I've already set up my samples, I've already set up my AOVs. Once I have finished with my Common tab, I'm really done with the Render Settings window. In order to output this render sequence, I'm going to use a command called render sequence. You can find that in the render menu. I'm getting to the render menu by pressing and holding down on the spacebar. That pulls up the hotbox. Here's render sequence and its option box. If you're not a hotboxer, that's fine. I'm going to take my status line, change it over to rendering, and that's where the render menu is. Because I'm teaching other classes, I tend to leave my status line set to modeling, and for you, you're grown-ups, you can use the hotbox. In the render sequence option box, the most important thing for you to do is change the current camera. It defaults to the perspective view, and if you leave it there, Maya will render through the perspective view, even though you told the render settings to render through camera 1. You absolutely need to go into the render menu, render sequence, option box, and you need to set the current camera to camera 1. That's the only thing you need to do in here. Once you're done, you can hit either render sequence and close or render sequence. Before I do that, I'll just say one last thing about the render sequence. It's a foreground process. We're rendering this way because Arnold is new to Maya. Maya just purchased Arnold a few years ago, and in order to finish paying for the product, Autodesk wants us to pay for background renders. The background rendering process back in the render menu is this batch render here. A background process means that you can continue to work in Maya while the process is running. That would be wonderful because it means that you could do multiple things and just leave your render on the back burner. Render sequence is a foreground process. Once I start the sequence running, I will not be able to do other things. I will just have to wait for it to be finished. Background processes like a batch render can be canceled. The render sequence can't. In order for me to cancel a render sequence, I have to close out of Maya, and to do that, I will have to force quit. Make sure that you've saved your scene before you start the render sequence, and make sure that you don't really have other big important things to do on your computer. This is something where you might want to walk away for a while, get a cup of coffee, have dinner, watch a movie, do something else, and just let the computer render. Once render sequence starts running, you might be able to do things on the internet a little bit, but you don't want to stress your computer out, so be prepared to start render sequence running, get up, and walk away. When I do begin my render sequence, you'll see that Maya starts by opening the Maya render view, not the Arnold render view. It's going to render the image completely into this render view and then save it out, and it will repeat that process 48 times until it is finished with the render. That's going to take me about an hour. So I'm not going to make you watch. I am going to stop this video here, and once my render sequence is complete, I will pick back up.